Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. We're coming to you live from SmartCon in New York City. Joining us for this segment, we have Hong Kim. He's founder and CTO at Bitwise Asset Management. We're here to discuss scaling the digital assets market and emerging products. It is great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Great to be here.
All right, you got it. Let's get some backstory here. What inspired you to co-found Bitwise and focus on bringing traditional finance into the crypto asset management space?
Absolutely. We started Bitwise back in 2017. It's been about 8 years. And at that time, people really didn't think of crypto as like a full asset class. People mostly thought of it as just Bitcoin and people speculating and trading on like Robinhood traders type day traders. But we thought that it would get to a place where proper asset management needs to exist. And if you think about, there's a lot of talk of bringing traditional assets to crypto rails. But the other direction is equally important. If you want to bring Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, these assets into traditional rails, then there have to be issuers like Bitwise that, let's say, convert it into an ETF, and then that format can be bought in people's retirement accounts, brokerages, et cetera, and ultimately increases the asset class and its market. And yeah, that's what we thought was important.
I remember covering Bitwise
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2017, 2018 at ETF conferences. So it's
Yeah.
nice to see it come full circle. And you've had, a number of recent successes with spot crypto ETFs, Solana, BSOL. That speaks to the growing institutional adoption. How does this opportunity for other assets, what can that set you up for the future lineup?
Yes. We're known for our index product that we launched 7 years ago. So our index fund that has a top 10 market cap weighted, you can buy the index and get access to the whole space. I think those types of products will become more popular as the space matures. And that is planned to be listed as an ETF format in the coming weeks once the government opens again.
Yeah.
Also, we have filings. Last week, we launched the first Solana ETF, BSOL. That was the largest launch in ETFs across the year. And we have filings in for XRP, Doge, Chainlink,
Yeah.
Avalanche, et cetera. And I think it will, we've been in an era where it was piecemeal. Like we went through one Bitcoin ETF application for years, and we went through Ethereum for years. And then I think soon, in about 6 months, 12 months, traditional investors, mainstream investors will be able to buy access to most things without having to leave their brokerage account.
So as digital markets scale, new products are emerging. What technology infrastructure do you think is going to be critical for institutions to really embrace crypto?
It's discussed a lot, but still I think tokenization is very much an important aspect of how institutions will be able to, because the traditional assets is what traditional financial firms are good at managing and thinking about, but it needs a way to transfer over to the crypto rails. And ultimately they have to be tokenized for that to happen. I think everyone is thinking about it, but ultimately, really when it gets down to the implementation, how does the operational folks deal with approving transaction signing with custodians? How does the legal and compliance team think about the risks that are involved, disclosing it to their investors in their prospectus? All these details need to be figured out, but once they figure out and traditional assets can really travel in crypto rails fluidly, then I think that would be a game changer. In the same way that once Bitcoin became an ETF format, that it could travel in the traditional rails in a fluid, first-class citizen way, that totally changed capital markets for Bitcoin. And I think that will have to go in the reverse direction as well. The traditional assets really can be a first-class citizen in crypto rails and on-chain economy directly.
So they really have to understand their operating environment, their regulatory environment to execute on
Yeah.
that. You've also, Bitwise has emphasized transparency, good stewardship within the crypto space. How does that approach help the strategy as you're looking to build future use?
Absolutely. Ultimately, Bitwise is a specialist. So like BlackRock, Fidelity, the largest asset managers in the world are also in the market. And somehow, if you look at the Bitcoin ETF cumulative inflows since launch, it goes BlackRock, Fidelity, and then Bitwise. It doesn't go, we have a 5% market share in that market, for example. Our Bitcoin ETF is about 5 billion in AUM. And the reason we have that market share amongst all the giants is because there's a desire. It's not everyone, but there is a desire to work with a specialist and work with a firm that cares about the space, understands the space, and I think that is something that we try to really live by and communicate to the market. And one of the ways is transparency. For example, we were the first and only actually US ETF issuer for Bitcoin and Ethereum to publish our addresses, our holding addresses of the assets. And also, even to this day, the only firm that does a proof of reserves, daily attestation through a publicly certified accounting firm in the US called the Network Firm. And we have that PDF, a report on our site every day that is updated and attested to. That type of thing might not resonate to someone that is thinking about Bitcoin for the first time,
Right.
but someone been a longtime fan looking for the right ETF to put into their retirement account or their children's estate, et cetera, and will hold it for a long time. I think for those people, finding a partner, an asset manager issuer that is aligned with their values, that cares about the network, that cares about developers. Another one of the things that we do is that we donate 10% of the proceeds, profits of the ETF for Bitcoin and Ethereum to open source developers. Yeah, and because ultimately these are public assets, these are open source networks, and somebody has to pick up the bills. It's not going to be funded by taxpayer money.
Well, that's
Yeah,
a good point.
yeah.
So, Hung, when you look ahead, where do you see institutional adoption across crypto assets, let's say the next 5 years? And is there a watershed moment that needs to happen in order to shift from niche to mainstream?
Yeah, I think watershed moments are really happening so every quarter that it's almost just the fact that we are now talking about real legislation. The Genius Act was the first crypto legislation, not like a rule that is included in like another bill, but like a crypto bill. It was a bipartisan pass. We're talking about market structure. Those things are incredible milestones. I think from a technology adoption sense, we're talking about tokenization where like a traditional asset, they tokenize and trade on crypto rails. If those tokenized assets or spot assets start trading directly on stock exchanges,
Right.
like Nasdaq or the New York Stock Exchange, et cetera. And I don't think that is that far-fetched. I think actually, if you look at the conversations that are published on the SEC's site around the conversations that are happening, most of the stock exchanges, commodities exchanges are coming in and saying, we're talking about bringing traditional assets to trade on crypto rails. Why can't tokenized or crypto assets trade on the largest regulated trading venues in the world? And I think when that starts to happen, I think it will be truly a watershed moment where really there's right now there's kind of hard lines between where is something issued, and then there's a small walled garden in which that can trade, whether it's traditional rails or crypto rails. But when they really converge, and one stock of an ETF or one stock of an Apple share, et cetera, is treated the same, thought of the same, as the liquidity is not fragmented, but actually just combined into one. I think that moment would be a truly watershed moment for
I agree with you. Appreciate the insight, Hung. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining us from SmartCon. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.